Well, welcome to the Noble Shire of Progressive Discussion at progressiverockcentral.com. And unbelievable, I can't believe that he's here, but thank goodness he is a legend. Thank you very much, Nick Magnus, for taking time out of your busy schedule to discuss your latest album, A Strange Inheritance, with us. This guy, I listened to him and Steve Hackett when I was in middle school, or maybe even before that. And to be sitting here talking with him is just what an honor. So thank you very much.
It's
Did you
a
want to
great,
say anything?
great pleasure. My pleasure.
Okay. Well, so the first question is the probably the biggest. What is it that when did you discover that music was going to be the career of your lifetime? What was it that pushed you into, or not pushed you, but sort of called you into music and making music?
Well, it goes back a long way. I first started playing when I was first discovered the piano when I was about 4 years old.
Wow.
When I found in the sort of toddler's creche that I went to, there was a piano in a room off the kitchen, and I used to just run in there and bash on that thing and make up tunes. And when my mum heard me, when she came to collect me one day, she heard me doing it, and she said, "Right, you're going off to piano lessons." And it sort of all began there. But the winding forward a long way into the future, I don't think I knew for certain that I would actually follow that course until I was about, I don't know, 19 or 20. And it all came out of being in school bands and deciding that that's really what I wanted to do. In fact, I did have an alternative. I had an alternative career that I might have followed had the doors slid differently, which was film animation. I was
Oh,
very, very interested in that. But things, little watershed moments push you down a particular path, and eventually it just sort of happened in a way, and I was obviously very very keen to follow it. But it was, I suppose, reasonably late in life. I suppose most kids decide, I suppose, in their middle teens that that's what they, if they want to be a musician, that's what they want to do. But it didn't strike me that it was actually a possibility until my early 20s.
all right. Well, you have worked with many artists over your career, and you've created several solo albums of your own. What have been some of your favorite collaborations outside of Steve Hackett? I want to talk about him separately, but some of the other people that you've worked with, what have been some of the highlights of that you would say of your career?
Highlights. Oh gosh, China Crisis was one of them.
Oh wow!
Um, I I did all the keyboards on an album called Flaunt the Imperfection, which was produced by Walter Becker, no less,
Oh
from
yeah,
Steely Dan. Yeah,
Steely. Yeah, I was
and
gonna say.
yeah, when I got the job, or when I was offered the job, I was absolutely petrified.
Yeah,
With somebody of
those two
that
are
pedigree,
incredible.
I just I just thought this is going to be this is going to be a car crash. I'm just going to embarrass myself terribly. It was a fantastic experience. I really enjoyed every minute of it. What nicest, most gentlemanly person ever. We became pretty good friends. I mean, it was over a 3 week period, I think, I spent doing that.
It
And
was sad to lose him not that long ago.
yeah, I know we
Mm.
lost him. It was terrible, terrible shame, terrible shame. But that was a real highlight. And I think also um, being on Renaissance's Timeline album.
Oh wow!
That was a lot of fun as well. Really nice bunch of people they were.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, there's a couple of them there.
All right. No, you are definitely a musician from the top shelf of progressive rock. You're from that era that really launched prog. And so it's very hard to ask this question, but what were your influences? Who were your favorite bands? I listened to you and Steve Hackett, but who did you listen to when you were a kid or in middle school? It's always interesting to find that out.
Yeah. Well, I think the album that really got me interested in the whole, or fascinated in the whole synthesizer aspect of things was Wendy Carlos's Switched on Bach.
Oh
And I'm
yeah.
sure there's an awful lot of keyboard players that say exactly the same thing. I mean, when that album happened, I was absolutely entranced by the whole thing. And I got the follow up, the Well-Tempered Clavier as well. That was a equally great record. Although for some reason it never quite hit the heights of fame that the Switched on Bach one did, because I suppose because that was the first of the two. Um, but my real the my real original inspiration was, do you know a British band from the early 60s called the Tornadoes?
No, no,
No, they did. You might well know a piece called Telstar.
that sounds familiar. Yes.
Yeah, Telstar. They had a huge hit with Telstar. They had all their stuff was produced by Joe Meek,
I'm
very
gonna have to go
famous
and listen to it. Yeah.
eccentric producer. That was what turned me onto keyboards in the first place. As I say, the synthesizers was Wendy Carlos, and that kind of progressed. The progressive rock interest, I think, were all the bands that everybody was into at the time. There was inevitably Genesis, there was Yes, Gentle Giant, Greenslade, Griffin, lots of bands beginning with G, funnily enough.
It's funny. Yeah, yeah.
I don't know why that should be. Uh,
And why are there so many Steves
but yeah, I mean, there was such
playing
a
guitar? Yeah.
fantastic array of different progressive bands at the time. They were all so individualistic. You could tell who somebody was, even if you'd never heard a piece before. You only had to hear a short bit before you just go, I know who that is. That's Gentle Giant. That's Genesis. You just knew because they were so individualistic. It was a great, fantastic choice of music at that time. So yeah, I was into all of that stuff, and particularly, I think, being a keyboard player, I was especially into the keyboard driven bands, the ones where the keyboards were particularly featured.
ELP.
Um, ELP. Well,
Keith.
yes, funnily enough, I was more into the Nice.
Oh yeah.
Much earlier on, my brother had lots of their stuff. He had Ars Longa Vita Brevis, and then he got into ELP, and then he had Tarkus and all of that stuff. And he used to listen to that kind of stuff. And I wasn't so keen on the rest of his record collection, but the prog stuff that he had, I really was into, because again, it was the keyboard oriented stuff. But I would say, maybe it's heretical to say, but ELP were probably lower down in my list of favorites.
What about Larry Fast and Vangelis? They had to have
Def-
some kind of
oh, Definitely Vangelis.
yeah.
Yes, yes, Vangelis was well, the master of the one man orchestra.
Yeah.
Basically, he had it nailed. He was great. And I liked and Larry Fast as well. Um, I
He
like what
really
he did.
brought the computer full phase into music. I mean, he
Yes,
wasn't
yes,
the only one, but he definitely was
yeah,
one of the leaders. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Well, let's talk about it. We're definitely going to get to your album, but I can't not talk about this. But how did you meet Steve Hackett, and how did you and he know that you're going to create something special together, some kind of music that just would influence people like me in my generation? I mean, you really did.
Well, that was really a fantastically what I call a sliding doors story. Uh, I I was in a band called Autumn at the time, in around
We're kind of
1977.
losing volume. I don't know what happened, but
Oh,
all
oh,
right. Sorry.
I've not
I'm
I've
sorry.
not changed anything.
All right.
Is it okay now?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry.
Good, good. I was in a band called Autumn around 1977, 78, and we were a progressive rock band, a four-piece. Um, and we'd done a few gigs around, not a huge amount, but it was right at the time when punk was just beginning to take off, and all the progressive bands were being basically stabbed in the back by the critics. Nobody wanted to know about
Yeah.
prog, and we we were in a kind of strange position where we couldn't get any gigs because we'd advertised ourselves in a college magazine. There was a magazine called Circuit Magazine, which went around all the colleges and universities to the social secretaries, and they would book bands. We put an advert in one issue of that with our phone number in. At that point, our phone got cut off because we
Oh,
couldn't afford
oh,
to pay the bill.
oh, goodness.
So we never knew if anybody ever tried to call us. We never knew, and by the time the next issue
Oh, my
came out, we
goodness.
were history. And we decided, we just said, well, let's carry on. But if anyone wants to look for another band, that's fine. That just stick adverts in Melody Maker. So Melody Maker, which at that time was the place to
Yeah.
advertise, musicians. I put an advert in, and when the issue came out with the advert, they'd got two digits of the phone number the wrong way round.
Oh, no.
And so I was not best pleased.
Yeah.
And so I got in
You're not
contact
getting
and
calls.
said,
Yeah.
could you run the advert again for free in the next issue? And they said, oh, yeah, it'll be a couple of weeks before it goes in. So when it finally went in again, they got the phone number right. And it just so happened that it was that issue that Steve saw.
Oh, wow.
They got the
Thank
phone
goodness.
number right the first time. He would never have seen it.
Yep. Yep.
So so he got in contact with me, and at first I thought it was a spoof. I thought somebody was playing a trick on me,
Joke. Yeah.
but
Yeah. Yeah.
no, he came round to my house where the band, we all lived together in the one little house. He came round with John, his brother, and
Yeah.
we basically, I played a few things. He listened to stuff, that recordings that we'd made as Autumn, and he said, "Oh, he seemed very enthusiastic," and said, "Would you like to come for a proper audition up in London?" So I said, "Yeah, absolutely." So a couple of weeks later, his roadie arrived with a van, bunged all of my gear into it, went up to London, and we spent the day having an audition. And we just got on straight away. And by the end of the day, he sort of exhausted everything he wanted to try out with me, and he just said there and then, "Do you want the job?"
Wow.
And that's what happened.
That is incredible.
A, a real story of chance.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially that telephone thing. Now, you went on to, I think, 7 or 8, and you'll know the number better, 7 or 8 different albums that you did with him. What would you say are some of the highlights? And you did some fantastic, you did Cured, Till We Have Faces, Spectral Mornings. Everyone loves Spectral, the song. Defector, and I didn't realize Highly Strung. I really liked that album, and a lot of people bypass it, but I really loved it. Bay of Kings, Guitar Noir, Genesis Revisited, Feedback 86, Time Lapse. But what would you say were some of your favorite moments? Because like I say, I don't want to spend this all on Steve Hackett, but I mean, you can't not talk about it. But go ahead.
Well, I think, pretty obviously Spectral has to have been sort of the major highlight, because that was the first professional commercial CD that I'd ever played on.
Wow.
and we spent a month in Holland doing it in the depths of winter,
Oh,
and
nice.
it was a wonderful experience. The studio was terrific, and we got to meet various other bands. One of my favorite bands, which I didn't mention earlier on, is a Dutch band called Kayak.
Oh yeah, yeah, I have heard of
You know
that.
Kayak, yeah, and they happened to be in the studio recording their Phantom of the Night album at the time.
Oh yeah.
So I got to meet them and became friendly with a couple of them, Tom Sherpenseal and Edward Rakers, and we just had a blast doing that album. A wonderful time, and we recorded it mostly at night as well. That was one of the interesting
Oh
things.
wow.
We'd sort of turn up, have supper at the studio, usually an Indonesian takeout, which of course was great. I just love Indonesian food, so
It's
we'd have
good.
a great
Very
Indonesian
good.
takeout, and then get to work and work all night, and then go back to the hotel and sleep during the day, trying to trying to stay
Wow.
awake while the maids were sort of hoovering outside the room, you know,
Oh yeah, yeah.
bashing the Hoover against the door.
Oh God. Thanks a lot. Yeah. I'm
So
trying to
that,
sleep here. Yeah.
but yeah, that was fantastic experience. And and Two We Have Faces was a fascinating experience as well, because we recorded that. Well, the bass tracks for that we recorded in, not as in BASE, not BASS. The
Yeah.
basic tracks we recorded
Basic.
all in Rio de
Oh wow.
Janeiro.
Yeah.
So
That must have
that was
been
quite
fun.
an experience, with all the guest musicians we had, the percussion, the two different drummers we had, the whole Brazilian percussion section and everything. That was really an incredible experience. And we finished the rest off. We did all the remaining overdubs back in London and the mixing. That was a real highlight. And but you mentioned Highly Strung. That was a favourite of mine as well. That was, I thought there was some very interesting moments on that where I strayed into places where I'd never been before,
Yeah.
slightly jazzy,
Yeah.
slightly jazzy areas that I I didn't know whether I would be able to do, but they kind of sort of fell out of the fingers happily, and it worked. That was a very, they were all good experiences basically, but those stood out.
And then what would you say? I know it's impossible to limit it to one, but I'm going to try. If you had to pick one song off of all those albums, which one? And again, I know that's, like I say, impossible because they all had fantastic songs. But
Oh God, that really
yeah, I
is
know, I know.
very, very difficult. I think Every Day,
Oh yeah,
because that was one of the funnest ones to play live as well. It
and
was,
it's a very upbeat, yeah, song. I
yeah,
love that song.
yeah. I'd pick that one. Because A, I really like the song, but B, I really enjoyed playing that one live.
All right. Well, let's talk about your new album, A Strange Inheritance. This is an amazing story and masterpiece of music centered on the life of, I think, Philadelphia. Is she a real person from history or mythology? We'll go
No,
there. No. Okay.
no, she's not. She isn't. No. There are two principal characters in there. There's Philadelphia and there's Jack, her,
Okay.
her love interest.
Okay.
And it's the story of the two of them, really. It's set in the 18th century, um, and the year is actually fairly specific. As it's on or after, just after 1739, um, which is where the Coram Institute opened. Now that features in the actual track Philadelphia, where she has to give up her child.
Yep.
She takes it to the Coram Institute. The Coram Institute is a real place.
Okay.
Um, and um, It's yes, it centers around those two characters, but it's also in some ways narrated at the beginning
Yeah,
by
by the
the parrot
parrot. Yeah,
who basically sets the scene. Basically, the first two tracks, Almost Silent Witness and Blood Money, both serve to set the scene. They set the time period. And Blood Money sets the politics at the time as well. What was going on with the Spanish Armada invading the Caribbean.
yep.
So
A
there
lot
are
of good
various
history.
levels to the
Yeah,
story.
and well, I was a history major or minor, I should say. So yeah, I love history and fantastic that not only you're keeping us people from our generation that studied all that stuff, but also the younger generations, get them to go hopefully open a book or at least Google some of these things and look them up and find out about them. So thank you. Thank you very much for that. Um, do you think you'll tour the album
Oh,
or you're
I
tired
can't
of touring?
I can't tour.
Oh,
Basically, it's beyond my means by quite a long way. It's a very expensive proposition to tour. You have to get quite a considerable sized band together to perform this kind of thing. Um, it's a lot of money, and I have no financial backing to do that kind of thing. So in some ways, I gave up the idea of touring some years ago, and I thought I would rather just sort of focus my interests on this in the studio
mhm.
and pay scant regard to whether something was actually performable live or not, because
Yeah,
the arrangements can get quite sort of dense and complicated. So it would be very difficult to reproduce those sorts of things live. So unfortunately, yeah, I would love to be able to take um, particularly a track like Four Winds and get a whole orchestra and a choir to do
yes.
it. Um, how that would ever happen, I have no idea.
Yeah. What about like a one-off or like a festival or Night of the Progs or something like that where you did one night of not only this but some of your favorite from the past?
Yeah, again, it all comes down to the feasibility and the cost.
Yeah.
It just wouldn't be possible, I'm afraid.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, no, no. Um, no, it'd be wonderful to see you play these live. All right, so let's talk about the album itself. An almost silent witness is the introduction of the parrot and beautiful, obviously keyboards, but also a violin. It almost feels like you have a small orchestra, and then the key. And I'm going to ask this question, and we'll see. I'm not sure what the answer is going to be, but Steve Hackett playing harmonica. Now, he does a fantastic job on not only this, but on some of his solo albums. But was there a conscious decision? And I guess I probably have to ask him, but you probably know that normally you would have asked him to come and play guitar. And he probably said, "No, no, I've done that. I want to do something different." Was there that perspective that no, I want to do something different this time. I want to do harmonica instead of guitar.
That was a conscious decision from me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the choice of the harmonica is the harmonica is it's sort of the parrot's character.
Oh, okay.
Um, it's got that sort of cheeky swagger to it. It's like that's like sort of bluesy, sort of
Yeah.
swaggery um, content quality to it. And for that solo section, I had thought of having guitar, but it didn't seem to fit the flavor, the sonic flavor, because there is a I was trying to get a suggestion of sea shanties into the
Yeah,
track, and the electric guitar wouldn't have put that across as well. I think the harmonica was a much more. I could just see somebody on the deck of the ship playing a harmonica
yeah, yeah.
rather than.
But and I guess I probably should have clarified that. I meant as being a participant in the album, everyone would expect him to come in and do, 3 or 4 songs of guitar. But I don't know. Again, I don't know him well enough. I've met him, but maybe he was like, no, I don't want to do that this time. I want to do something different that's going to surprise people. And instead of, looking for Steve Hackett, the guitarist, look for Steve Hackett, the harmonica player. And like I say, he does a fantastic job. No, there weren't any thoughts that way, or that
No,
just might be
no,
my own invention. I don't know.
no. He was only too pleased to do the harmonica. I mean,
Okay.
he's a terrific harmonica player,
He is. Yeah.
and it fitted the track. And normally I'd get him to on previous albums. He's been on more tracks on the album,
Sure.
but as you probably know, the last couple of years or so, he's been so incredibly busy. He's been
Very
either
busy.
recording or mostly out on the road for months and months at a time. So it was a question of availability and time as
Yeah.
well. So it was like make the best use of him.
All
I mean,
right.
he's always been so supportive and always keen. He always says, anytime you want me to play anything on your albums, just ask. I'll do it. Um, but with the limited time availability, it's just like, right, what's going to be the most, have the most effect and be a surprise as well. Because I think everybody, they see, featuring Steve Hackett somewhere in the press release, and they're going to expect guitar, and they don't get that, and they get something completely different.
Which is good. No,
Yeah,
I think that is just
yeah. I
like
think
you say,
surprise.
it stunned me when I first got the promo. I'm looking, where is he playing guitar? And he wasn't. But it was like that's why I came up with what I said. It was a nice surprise. Yeah, it was very good. Good choice. And yeah, he's played some excellent harmonica on some of his solos, and he did a fantastic job on yours.
Yeah, I was
Um,
really pleased with it.
all right, now Blood Money. Oh my goodness, you took me right back to um, Tony Patterson. Almost sounds like the reincarnation of Gary Brooker from Procol Harum. I was like, this is awesome. I'm obviously a Procol Harum fan, but and then John Greenwood's guitar makes you think it's Steve, but it's not. But Blood Money is just a fantastic. I mean, they're all fantastic, but this one really hit me with that Procol Harum. I know you weren't shooting for that, but did you kind of did that? Was that somewhere in the back of your mind or no?
No, it wasn't. In fact, when I saw that comparison, I was really pleased for Tony. Um, uh, I just generally with Tony, I just let him go and just
Mhm.
sing it how you feel it.
Yeah.
Um, he's the one thing with Tony is he's a great actor when he's singing.
Oh
Um,
well.
he he just gets the feel, when it's angry, he sounds angry. When it's sad, he sounds sad. It's just he just really finds he finds the emotion in the piece, and it just comes out naturally. Um, you just let him go for it. That's the thing. And I didn't have the only model I have in my mind when he's doing that, or when we were doing that, is it's Tony. Tony being
Yep.
Tony.
But you
You should
must have,
never ask, and you should never ask a singer to sound like someone else either.
yeah, no, don't tell
No,
people.
no,
Yeah,
no, no.
I was reading an article about that just the other day or so. Never tell an artist what to do. They'll walk away. I can't remember who it was, but somebody told an artist, well, I want you to play this. And they said, that's it, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're artists. They want to create. All right, where did the concept for Philadelphia come from, and why Philadelphia? And I've been there. It's a beautiful town. It's famous over here for sure, for all of the reasons that we set up a, new country. And but go ahead.
Yeah. Well, yes, it's try and make it as concise an answer as possible. But the the original idea stems from, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, when Dick Foster, who writes the lyrics,
Okay.
um, had an